بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. I am sorry that today we had to make this session very short. Some of you may know I have come to welcome our guests who come for the 7th round of Catholic Shia dialogue, and just now they are there in the upstairs and I came to have the Skype with you. We have had the welcome session and our dialogue inshallah will start from tomorrow. Please pray that inshallah everything goes well. The discussion that we have today and inshallah next week and with inshallah be the end of this book is about al-adillatul fiqahiyyah. If you remember, in the beginning we said there are two types of dalil, al-adillatul ijtihadiyyah and al-adillatul fiqahiyyah. Those reasons or those sources, those dalil that we use for understanding hukm waqi'i, the real ruling, are kitab and sunnah and aql and ijma'. We already talked about them. Then we said there are also sources that we use when we are in doubt about hukm waqi'i. When we are not able to establish what is the real ruling, we have to do something, and Sharia would not leave us without solution. So here we have some practical principles, al-usul al-amaliyah, some practical principles that help us to determine what is my duty, what is my responsibility in this case when I have doubt. So, al-adillatul fiqahiyyah, which is the last part of the book, as you remember, include 4 principles: al-istishab, al-bara'ah, al-ihtiyat, al-takhir. I also gave you a way to argue that there cannot be more than 4. If you remember, I said, we can argue by yes and no that there must be only these 4. We said when you have doubt, either there is a previous state which is known certainly or not. If you have a previous state which is known certainly, what do? You use istishab. Okay? If there is no previous state, then either you know that there has been an obligation or you doubt. If you doubt, you do bara'ah. Because when you are not sure whether an obligation has belonged to you, you can assume there was no obligation. If there was no previous state, but you are sure that there is obligation, then if you can do ihtiyat, you have to do ihtiyat. Because if there is obligation and you don't know whether that obligation can be implemented in this way or that way, you have to do both to make sure that you have fulfilled your responsibility. And if there is no way to be doing ihtiyat, then you have takhir, you have choice. This is something that we mentioned in the beginning, and this was a way to say that rationally there cannot be more than 4 options. Okay, now let's go into a little bit more details about each of these 4. Of course, more detailed discussions comes inshallah in advanced books. So first, Sheikh Fadli rahmatullah alayh starts with al-adillatul fiqahiyyah, which are istishab, bara'ah, ihtiyat and takhir. And then he says we use them when we are in doubt about hukm waqi'i, there is ignorance, there is jahl, there is no way to establish what is al-hukm al-waqi'i. And therefore, we have to find a practical solution. And we only refer to these when there is no adillatul ijtihadiyya, because adillatul ijtihadiyya precede. They establish hukm waqi'i for us. If we cannot understand hukm waqi'i, then we refer to al-adillatul fiqhiyya. The first is istishab. Istishab comes from sahiba. Sahiba means to give company, to accompany. You know, in Arabic we have sahib, ashab, sahaba, sahabi. All comes from the same root, sahaba, which means to accompany. This is the literal meaning of sahaba. And istishab means to bring something to accompany. What we technically mean by istishab mean to rule that what was known to be the case in the past is still in effect. Something you are sure that was the case before, now you are in doubt whether the situation has changed or not. You assume practically that the situation has not changed. For example, you had wudu. You doubt whether your wudu is broken because of, for example, sleeping or not. You were sleepy, but you are not sure whether you actually slept or not. So you have a previous certainty about wudu, but you have a current doubt. Istishab means to bring the previous condition to the current situation. So we assume that the wudu continues unless it is proved otherwise. This is a practical measure. Maybe you really don't have wudu, but as long as it's not established that you don't have wudu, you assume that your wudu is still there. So the definition is this: حكم الشارع ببقاء اليقين في ظرف الشك. This is the verdict, the ruling of the legislator, that the certainty remains in the condition of doubt من حيث الجري العملي, with respect to the practical situation. We are not establishing anything waqi'i, anything real, but we are just, for practical reasons, we assume that the previous condition is continuing. But please be careful. This is different from someone who doubts his previous wudu. For example, someone was thinking that I have wudu, and then he says, did I make wudu or not? This is not istishab, because your doubt is going back to the previous condition. We say ashakku sari. This is different from istishab. If you doubt whether you made wudu in the first place, this is not istishab. Istishab is that you are 100% sure that you had wudu at 8 o'clock, for example. Now at 10 o'clock, you say, maybe my wudu is broken. So the certainty about the previous condition has not been affected. What is doubtful is your situation right now. Is it clear?
Yes.
So in istishab we need few things. One is al-yaqeen, certainty. Yaqeen means a kind of knowledge that you have where there is no hesitation, no doubt. So you have to have certainty about condition in the first time, previous time. Second, istishab is where you have doubt about the situation in the second time. So if you are sure that your wuzu is broken, then there is no chance for istishab. Istishab is for the people who have doubt for the second condition. They have certainty about the first condition, they have doubt about the second condition. Third, what you are certain about and what you are doubtful about should be the same thing. For example, wudu. My wudu, I know that was there 8 o'clock, and I doubt about my wudu at 10 o'clock. The same thing, just different times, different conditions. Not that, two different things. You have certainty about something and doubt about something else. That doesn't make sense. Because istishab is to assume what was there before to the current time. The fourth is that you should have actual certainty and actual doubt, what we call فعلية الشك واليقين. Your doubt and certainty should be actual. If there is doubt or certainty which are conditional, which are not really there, this is not istishab. For example, someone says, if I was careful, maybe I would have had certainty. Or for example, someone says, I don't have doubt, but if, for example, if I had thought about it in the second time, maybe I had doubt. For example, someone is thinking today about something yesterday. He says, early morning yesterday I had certainty, but later I didn't have doubt, but if I had doubted, what would happen? No, we are not talking about such things. We are talking about someone who had actual certainty and actual doubt. Certainty belonged to a previous time and doubt was for the later time. So we assume that the condition continues in the second time as well. So the actuality has to be there for both certainty and doubt, and unity of what has been doubted and what was certain also has to be there. They must be identical. Nothing should be different. Also, there must be continuity. If someone says, at 8 o'clock, I was certain that I had wudu. At 10 o'clock, I had doubt, but even before 10 o'clock, I am not sure. Maybe 9 o'clock also I slept. No, there must be before doubt continuity, so that now you can jump over doubt. But even if before doubt there was another problem, then you cannot bring that certainty. If certainty is intact up to the time of doubt, then you can bring it further. But if certainty is damaged and affected before, then we cannot assume that the previous condition continues. And also, as we said, certainty should be before doubt, not opposite. Not that you first doubt, then you have certainty. If you were, for example, if someone says, at 8 o'clock, I don't know, I had wuzu. 10 o'clock, I had wuzu. So I want to bring wuzu to the 8 o'clock, opposite. 8 o'clock, he had doubt. 10 o'clock, yaqeen. Now he says, I want to assume that 8 o'clock also I had wuzu. This is bringing wuzu earlier. It doesn't work. You can take wuzu further, not to bring it earlier. What is the reason for istishab? What is the argument? There are different arguments mentioned by scholars. One is siratul uqala. Some scholars have said this is actually the habit of the rational people. Rational people, even if they are not religious people, in their day-to-day life, when they know something is the case and later they doubt, they continue. For example, if you want to visit your friend and you visited him last month in a particular address, now you don't know whether his house has changed or not, you assume the address is the same. You don't say, okay, I'm in doubt, so I don't know what to do. No, you try the same address. If, for example, you have been working for an office and then there was a summer holiday. You don't say, maybe, you know, I have lost my position because there is a break. No, you assume you have still your position. So some people say this is siratul uqala, this is the habit of the rational people, and also in Islam this has been endorsed, this has been accepted, and the society in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not different in this aspect from other societies. So people in the time of the Prophet, for sure, they were acting according to istishab like other societies, and we don't have anything banning or prohibiting people from assuming that the situation continues till you are sure that it has been changed. The second argument is as-sunnah. Some scholars have argued from sunnah, means from, for example, hadith, for validity of istishab. A very famous hadith which is about wudu. Although it is about wudu, but it refers to istishab as a general principle, so you can use it for tahara, najasa, and many other things. Is muwaththaqatu Ammar and Abil Hassan alayhi salam. Ammar asked Imam Qadim alayhi salam, إِذَا شَكَكْتَ, he asked about wuzu, and if he is in doubt, Imam alayhi salam says, إِذَا شَكَكْتَ فَابْنَ عَلَى الْيَقِينِ. When you have doubt, build upon certainty. Means assume that your certainty is still in effect. We have also many other hadiths. For example, the famous hadith of Zurare from Imam Sadiq about istishab, that Imam said, لا تنغض اليقين بالشك. But the reason Sheikh Fazli mentioned this hadith is because this hadith has a sentence which is helping to understand that this is a general principle. Imam says, إِذَا شَكَكْتَ فَابْنَ عَلَى الْيَقِينِ. When you doubt, build upon yaqeen, or assume that your certainty is carrying on. قُلْتُ هَذَا الْأَصْلِ. I said, is this a principle? Is this a general guideline? قَالَ نَعَمْ. Imam said yes. So it means that it's not only about, for example, a particular issue. It's a general principle that you can use. So this is about istishab. The second principle, practical principle, or asla amali, is bara'ah. What is bara'ah? Bara'ah means you assume that you have no taklif, no obligation. Because there is no previously established taklif, so that you need to do istishab. And there is no dalil ijtihadi to prove that there is obligation. So if there is no Quran or hadith or ijma or aql that says you have a responsibility, a duty, a taklif, there is no such thing. And also there is no previous condition, so that it can be continued by istishab. So we said the principle here is we assume that there is no taklif, because as long as you don't know of taklif, there is no way of knowing taklif. You did your best, but you didn't find any responsibility coming to you, so you assume that you are free. So this is called bara'ah, means that your dhimma is free. You have no responsibility on your shoulder. There are two ways to argue for bara'ah. Al-bara'atu al-shar'iyyah, al-bara'atu al-aqliyyah. Al-bara'atu al-shar'iyyah means religiously you assume exemption. Religiously. So this is to say that you don't have religious responsibility because of doubt in having obligation at all. For example, if someone says, maybe we have this wajib in Islam that, I don't know, a particular type of paying money, for example, other than khums and zakat, or we have this responsibility of traveling, to any place other than Hajj wajib. If someone has doubt, as long as you don't have any way to establish this, you assume you don't have taklif. Because Quran says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا ما آتاها. Allah would not compel, would not impose obligation on any person unless if he has given that person the news about it, the power for doing it. So if you don't know that there is taklif, Allah would not ask you to do it. The first requirement and condition for taklif is knowledge about taklif. If your master wants you to do something, he informs you. And if he informs you and does not reach you, not because you were not doing your best, but because somewhere in the middle the news was missed or lost or people didn't pass it on to you. Anyway, you do your best and you don't receive any news, so you have no responsibility, because لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا ما آتاها. Allah would not bring any soul into question and accountability unless for what that soul has been given. So if you have not been given knowledge about taklif, you are not responsible. Also, we have hadith that can be used for this purpose. For example, we have very famous hadith of Rafa. Hadith of Rafa, which needs to be discussed further, inshallah, in future when we study, intermediate and advanced levels of Usul, is a famous hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said, رفع عن أمتي تسعة. 9 things have been removed from my nation. It means that my nation are not responsible, are not going to be questioned with respect to 9 things. They are exempted from 9 things. Al-khata, mistakes. If unintentionally, by mistake, you do something, you are not responsible in the sense that you will not be punished, but sometimes you have to compensate. That's another issue. But morally, legally, you are not blamed for something that you did it unintentionally. Of course, this is different from carelessness. Sometimes we are careless and then we say it was a mistake. No, something that you had enough adequate care, but still we are human beings, we make mistakes. Mistakes as such are not blamed and you are not held responsible for mistakes, but after that, if you have some financial or other responsibilities for compensation, that's another issue. One nisyan, the same is when you forget. If I forget, again we are human beings, we may forget. Maybe a person forgets that he has to say his prayer. Or maybe he was fasting and forgetfully he ate something. So he is not punished for forgetfulness. Whether there are other things to do for compensation, that's another issue. وَمَا أُكْرِهُ إِلَيْهِ. If they have been put under pressure and if there has been compulsion to do something, they are not morally responsible, unless, of course, the issue is so important that even if you are going to be under pressure and even if you are going to be killed, you have to not accept. So this needs further discussion. But in general, as long as the issue is not very, very important, so sometimes when there is compulsion and pressure, maybe you are not morally responsible. وَمَا لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. What they don't have any knowledge about it. وَمَا لَا يُطِيقُونَ. What they are not able to do it. وَمَا اضْطُرُّوا إِلَيْهِ. What they are, forced to do because of emergencies. اضطرار. There is emergency sometimes. For example, a person is dying, has nothing to eat except haram meat or except najas water. He's dying, starving. So as much as can save his life, he can eat from that haram meat. Not more than that. He cannot do more than istirar. You know, for example, he say, okay, now we do barbecue and we enjoy ourselves. No. Only little, so that you save your life, you can eat from haram meat. ما لا يطيقون وما اضطروا إليه والحسد. Jealousy. As long as jealousy is in the heart and you don't act upon it, you are not punished. Because it's very difficult for ordinary people to get rid of jealousy. We have to try to reduce it, control it, and inshallah gradually get rid of it. But the good news is that if you have still jealousy in your heart, but you don't act upon it, you don't start backbiting people, hurting people, doing zulm to people because of jealousy. No, you don't do anything bad, just it's in your heart. Rasulullah says you are not punished for this. والتفكير في الوسوسة في الخلق ما لم ينطق بشفة. Also, if someone has doubt about creation, who is creator, why God has created people in this way, questions about creator and creation, as long as he keeps this question in his mind and does not express it and publicize it, there is no problem. Of course, if he asks the question from knowledgeable people to find the answer, that's fine. But sometimes worries, questions come and go. You are not to be blaming yourself as long as you are not, sharing this with too many people, publicizing, confusing other people. Okay, so this is another reason for bara'atu shar'iyyah. So in general, what is important is religious rulings, whether it be taklifi or wad'i. You remember al-ahkam al-taklifiyya wal-wad'iyya? What are taklifi? How many taklifi we have? Okay. Not this, just 5. Okay. Al-hurma, al-karaha, al-ibaha, al-istihbab, al-wujub. These are al-ahkam al-taklifiyya, something directly about the responsibility of mukallaf. What are al-ahkam al-wad'iyya?
Situational.
Yes, like what?
Like marriage.
Like marriage, divorce, ownership, something being conditioned, all these things. So it's not directly about duty of mukallaf, but from which duties can come out. In any case, al-bara'atu shar'iyya, whether it be for ahkam taklifi or ahkam wad'i, is something that our scholars accept, and they say as long as there is no way to come to know your taklif, practically you assume that you have no responsibility. So this is bara'at al-shari. But also we have al-bara'at al-aqliyah, which means that even if we didn't have any ayah or hadith which indicate al-bara'ah, we can also still have al-bara'ah based on aql, exemption based on intellect. Because intellect says that if there is responsibility, it should be declared to you. If you are not informed, then you are not responsible. So this is also al-bara'atul aqliyah. The root of this bara'ah is a general rule which says al-iqab bila bayan qabihun. Punishing without explaining and informing is immoral. Do you believe any wise person, any moral person would punish his, for example, children or employee or the people who are under his command, punishes them without telling them what he wants from them. No rational person does this. So of course Allah is not going to punish us for something that we don't know. But we don't know not because we didn't want to know. Sometimes people say, it's better not to know. So we don't listen to any lecture, we don't read because we don't want to know so that we will be responsible. No. If the knowledge is there, you close your eye, you don't want to understand, that is not good. But like ulama, they study books, Quran, Hadith. If they don't find any way to establish that there is such a taklif, so we can assume that there is no taklif actually. Means practically we don't have taklif. The third principle, al-ihtiyat. Where do we use ihtiyat? I already told you in the beginning. When there is no previous condition. So there is no istishab. And taklif is known to be there. If taklif is not known to be there, we do bara'ah. If taklif is known to be there, and you don't know how to perform it, you know there is taklif. For example, you know that you must do either Zohr or Jum'ah, for example. Suppose, as an example, in the time of Ghaibah, you know that after midday you have to pray. There is taklif. You cannot do bara'ah. But you don't know whether it is Zohr or Jum'ah. So you do ihtiyat. So if you know that there is taklif and you don't know how to do it and it's possible to do ihtiyat, you do ihtiyat. If it's not possible, you do takhir. So ihtiyat means to do all possible options, to bring all possible options in order to make sure that you are on the safe side. We have al-ihtiyat al-shar'i and we have al-ihtiyat al-aqli. Al-ihtiyat al-shar'i is the ruling which comes from shari', from legislator, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place and then Prophet in the second place, which says that you must bring all the possibilities in order to make sure that the taklif, the obligation which has belonged to you, is obeyed, is followed. And many ulama say that we have ihtiyat al-shar'i because there is taklif, but some also say that there is no ihtiyat al-shar'i, and if you know taklif, then you do just ihtiyat al-aqli. What is ihtiyat al-aqli? Is the ruling of aql, that you must do your best to make sure that you are no longer under taklif. If taklif has belonged to you, now you do your best to make sure that you are no longer under taklif. الاحتياط العقلي هو حكم العقل باللزوم الخروج عن أحدة التكليف المنجز. If taklif has become munjaz, it has become actual, if it's in effect, you have to make sure that you come out of it. You cannot take any risk here because you know taklif. If you didn't know taklif, that was okay. But when you know there is taklif, you don't know Zohr or Jum'ah, you have to do both. You don't know Qasr or Tamam. For example, you must pray, you don't know it's Qasr or Tamam. You have to bring both Qasr and Tamam. You don't know Qibla. You cannot say, I don't know Qibla, so I don't pray. So you have to do as many Salat as makes you sure that you have done your Salat to the Qibla. So we need to make sure that we have come out of this situation with peace of mind. The reason for ihtiyat aqli, for intellectual or rational precaution, is one of the two. One is a famous ruling which says al-ishtighal al-yaqini yaqtadi al-faragh al-yaqini. All rational people agree that when you know that you are certainly under taklif, you have also to make sure that you are certainly coming out of taklif. If taklif is on you, you have to make sure that you have fulfilled your responsibility. The other thing is, again, rational, وجوب دفع الضرر المحتمل. If there is a possibility of harm, if you remember, we had this in Aqaid when we were talking about why we should inquire about religion. We said, if there is a possibility of harm, rational people say you should do something. You cannot ignore likelihood of harm. If a person comes and says, you know, there is a fire in the room next to you, you should study. You cannot ignore it. Unless you know that person is a liar. If you don't know that person is a liar, you cannot ignore this harm. So, when you know there is taklif, you cannot take risk by doing only one option. Maybe taklif is the other option. You have to be sure that you have protected yourself and safeguarded yourself against the harm which is caused by not doing what was wajib. And the last thing is at-takhyir. Inshallah, we leave this for next session, and I hope to meet you inshallah next Monday in London. Please remember us with dua, and if there is any question, I can take a few questions. Otherwise, inshallah, we meet next week, and we will inshallah finish the book, and we will have a quick review also of the main chapters of the book, inshallah.
Sisters, you got any questions? Any questions, brothers? Asking for hints for revision.
Pardon?
They want to know some hints for revision, or what should they revise?
Okay. Inshallah, I will try to review with you, of course. So maybe I ask you to go through each title in the book quickly. So maybe inshallah in 1.5 hours we can review the entire book, provided that you refresh yourself. So for example, maybe I ask you, what is the main argument about ihtiyat? What is the main argument about bara'at aqli, bara'at shar'i? Inshallah we review together the entire book so that you would be ready for exam. Thank you very much. Inshallah, remember us your dua. Inshallah, we would meet again on the Skype on Wednesday. Inshallah. التماس دعاء. السلام عليكم.